All right, friends, welcome to another episode of Holy Habits in the House. I am Dr. Brian Pedraza, professor of theology at FRANU and director of the Dominus Project. Why Dominus? Because Domus is a Latin word for house, and Dominus is the Latin word for the Lord. And we want to help people make Jesus the Lord of their homes and families. I am joined by my good friend, Father Josh Johnson.
And that's great, because I thought it was Domino's the whole time.
Yeah, man, $5.99 for a medium.
I'm saying running the thin crust with other stuff on there.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad.
We just had the worst pizza this past weekend.
From there?
No, not from Domino's. We were out at the beach, and this place that was highly rated. It was like $30 for really terrible pizza.
Yeah. Isn't that heartbreaking?
You shouldn't be able to mess it up, but they messed it up really expensively.
Well, we're going to serve up something fresh right here.
Ooh, that's so
Fresh. Who we got?
So we have Dr. David and Alicia Whidden, the Whiddens, Christian and Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Power couple.
Praise them all. They are definitely a Holy Spirit power couple. And we're going to talk about Jesus today. But before we talk about Jesus and the church and discipleship and all that good stuff, I want to know more about y'all. Alicia, whenever you're at the house and y'all got music on the background, what is Dr. David Whidden's go-to dance move when nobody's looking?
Oh, I do have a wonderful story.
Oh, so, great. Yes.
When we were dating.
This got way better. He's
Yeah.
That's really good.
We almost did not get married because...
Not because of me.
Yeah, it was because of you. There was one point at a restaurant where... has some kind of...
I don't know. It was robot worthy.
It was robot worthy. He started a robot at a sushi restaurant. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, I've never seen that at a sushi restaurant before.
Oh, there it is.
But now it's come a joke. And so even like at our wedding and stuff, my brother busted out the robot at the very end and everyone started doing the robot. So,
It's really romantic. Yeah.
It is.
That's the move.
You never knew that about David Whiddens.
Now the whole world's good.
What, surprised with a stiff white guy?
I didn't see it, but now I can.
So, friends, this is the first part of a sort of two-part special, and we wanted to bring you all in to introduce it. This is all about a family being on a mission. So, I mean, it's really important to us to talk about the home being an important place of formation, and clearly that's a part of what we're doing. But like Pope John Paul II liked to teach us, the way that you kind of grow into yourself, who you're supposed to be, really takes self-gift towards other people. And one of the important ways that Catholic families do that is through the works of mercy, through service in the community. So we're really interested in how that sort of thing plays out in your family and your family's life, whether it's service in the home, outside of the home, and maybe something to kind of get us thinking about this is, I've been writing an article on just wages, and I came across this passage from Augustine. Remember, I shared this with you a bit, and Augustine's talking about paths to heaven. And he basically says, to paraphrase him, for some people, there's martyrdom, dying for the Lord. For other people, there's the following of the counsels, right? So religious life, poverty, chastity, obedience. And he says, for everybody else, there's Matthew 25. And that's the passage where, like, when did we see you, Lord? What are you talking about? Oh, it was when you fed me when I was hungry, right? You clothed me when I was naked, right? That sort of a thing. So when I read that, I was kind of like, ouch, like, how much emphasis do we put on serving the poor when the Lord says this is going to separate the sheep from the goats, And so with that sort of as the backdrop for what we're doing, let's hear about it. Like, in your family, what role does service really play for y'all?
We were talking about it as we were walking up. I remembered it's been baked into our relationship from the beginning. When we first started dating in Dallas, the church that I was a part of fed the homeless on Friday nights. And that's actually one of the things that we did as we were dating.
Oh, wow.
Actually,
that's a good date.
It's a good day, right?
It's a good date. And I think what I'm trying to instill in my kids is like those moments where you're serving others is such an important time to come together. And it may be like a mundane thing that you're doing, but it brings you so much closer to each other and so much closer to the Lord. And it's just been great to see that progression as we've matured as a couple, and we're maturing as a family, hopefully in our faith as well.
No wonder you fell in love with this guy if it wasn't the dance moves, right?
Yeah.
Seeing him serve like
yes, Yes. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
It was a really important, I think, experience for us as a couple. And then, and in Matthew 25, when we were talking about the Bible verses, and I mentioned that to her, that's the one that's really inspired me. And I say to our students all the time that the longer I worked at Fran U, the more I'm really have begun to believe that the only way you can become what God has made you to be is by serving others, by living a life outside of yourself. And I think that's essentially what Matthew 25 says. It's right. It's like you'll be who God has made you to be by serving the poor and by serving Christ in the poor. And that's oftentimes a lot harder to do than it's easy to say, but it can actually be really difficult to do. I don't want to gloss over that.
One of the things that convicted me when I first met you was you told me that you would have your students do service projects at Fran U, and they'd write a paper on it. And then afterwards, you would ask them, you would say, oh, I don't see the person's name in here. What was their name? And if their name wasn't in there, you're like, this isn't good. Right? Because it's all about relationships. Right. An actual person.
Because it's easy to serve people in arm's length. You can just give them food and never relate to them. Yeah. It's a whole nother thing to give somebody, to find out their name, right? And to give them your name, because once somebody has your name, they have a claim on you. They can demand your attention just by having your name. I mean, of course, God does that. He does that in Exodus, right? In that encounter with Moses in the burning bush, I mean, he's like, tell me your name, right? And God gives him this name. And by God giving man his name, this Yahweh name, right? It gives man an ability to call on him, right? So names, I think, are actually an important part of the service, right? It's like, how do we not just, and not just tell me what your name is, but my name is David, my name is Alicia, tell me your name. Yeah. That's at the beginning of a real relationship.
The humility of God, right?
Right.
Because when you first started that story, it was like, oh, you're about to say that God was going to lord it over Moses because he claimed his name, but it's the other way.
Right.
Moses is like, God, tell me your name. Right. The humility of God to say, this is how to call me, Right. That's incredible. So I love that y'all started your relationship in service. And now that you're married, take us to the point where you start having kids. How did you start thinking about, service is going to be an important thing, not just for us, but for the kids that we're raising?
Well, I think it's kind of grown and developed as our family has grown and developed together. So, and Dave and I have talked a lot about hospitality and how we want to integrate that into our home life. And that might mean inviting the neighborhood kids over, having that open house, always having friends and family come over for dinner, sharing a meal.
There's always room for an extra.
There's always room for an extra. Come on over. And I think that's just progressed. And a few years ago, we opened up our home in a very intimate way and started fostering children in the community. And that's a very intimate form of hospitality. And before we did that, we talked to each of our kids and said, this has been placed on our hearts, or mainly my heart, I would say at first.
Fair. Totally fair.
And I feel this calling that we, need to explore this as a family. And what do you guys think? So it's like we have each our own individual missions, but as we've grown as a family, we have our family mission. And right now that's taking form of fostering and developing relationships.
How have you seen your children, your biological children, change from their experience of living with also your foster children?
I think they've grown in grace and
patience.
Patience, yeah. Yeah. So, it's been such a blessing, the biggest blessing, I'd say, for our family unit, because we've just been able to create an intimate relationship with other people outside of our home and invite them into our house and into our lives.
Well, and it's a form of witness too, right? Because people ask us like, why do you do this? How did you get into this? And we can talk about our Christian faith with people like, we're Christians. We feel called to do this because we're Christians. And so it allows us to have, a lot of people just sort of know and are not surprised sort of giving the work that we do. But it's a form of witness. I mean, when Augustine talks about martyr, or martyrdom, we always have to remind people the word martyr just means witness. There's lots of ways to witness, right?
Yeah.
And there's ways to sort of physically die, but there's a way of dying to oneself too. I mean, fostering is not easy. It's a genuine labor of love.
It is. Yeah.
And I never want to romanticize it with people. It's also really difficult sometimes. Yeah. And so it forces us to get out of our comfort zone, to put aside our own sort of selfish desires and things that, the way you think your life might go, and all of a sudden it may go in very different directions.
Yeah.
And so it's good for our kids to see that too. Mm-hmm. It helps them understand, I think, sort of the position of privilege that they actually start with, but also to see, like, here's one way to act out the faith. Mm-hmm. And, we bear that with us all the time.
Yeah. I want to tread lightly on some sacred ground by asking you this question, Alicia, right? Because you said that the Lord really put it on your heart. So there are some people who are thinking about fostering or adopting, and it could be for a whole host of reasons, right?
Right.
There are plenty of couples who struggle with infertility. There are plenty of couples who just feel it on their hearts that they need to grow their family by adding more love and putting more self-gift in there. What was it like for you? Like, what was the Lord doing in you that you felt like this was something that you all needed to discern?
So during COVID is really where I started to feel a call towards fostering. And it breaks my heart that there's kids out there that don't have the family support that they need in order to be with a stable group. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny because we started doing our classes online during COVID. And I remember turning to my husband one time because I thought I had registered for the fostering online courses. And he was not on board yet with the fostering program. And but I turned to him and I was like, I think I registered, but I can't find my registration. I need your help. And I started crying.
And it was like 30 minutes before the classes began. Oh, wow. It would be months before we would get.
I said, David, God has tried to call me to Nineveh and I can't get there. Like, I just need your help. And it was like this. I got this. Let's do this. And after that, I feel like our paths aligned. And like that kind of led us into fostering. Where now we have we foster multiple kids in one long term. So
hopefully,
and we love one of your foster kids. I call him Baby J.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
We love Baby J at Sacred Heart, and seeing y'all at Mass, and even the way he interacts with us now because he's used to it, and you run around the entire Mass, can work out in.
She never hears your mom.
No, I don't see anything wise. They just read the Bible. That's sufficient. But it's so beautiful seeing your family unit, and then also seeing other families at Sacred Heart who also adopted over the years, and it's a beautiful thing. And I do think
Deacon Aguilar.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, and so so it's just it's a gift. So
and he's a gift.
He is a gift. He's so beautiful. Yeah.
And even to step back. So we did. We started off serving the homeless in Dallas, and we've done that as well in Baton Rouge and some places at some of the churches and opportunities here. And so some of that I think is as well. You have to figure out where your kids are developmentally.
Right.
And there's places, there's things that, you can do with a 9-year-old or things you can do with a 15-year-old that you may not be able to do with, toddlers. Mm-hmm. So I think finding sort of the way to share that service with your children is going to depend on where your kids are, how many kids you've got, and so on. So we've done different things. There may sometimes have to be a pause for people, right? Because as a domestic church, the first ones you're called to serve are the children that you have,
that you already have,
right? And so Alicia does that in other ways too. I mean, we homeschool, so we're serving our kids educationally that way, but also other kids through co-ops that we engage with. We talked about that. There's a little girl who is almost we're like her second family who lives near us, but her dad died, and it was a really sad time in her family. She spent a lot of time in our house, and recently her mom's like, y'all saved her, just by sort of being a place that she could come where it was happy.
If I could just chime in here, I do think it's very important for our families to recognize that serving your kids is a mission, and so we don't ignore them to go to the soup kitchen or to do like a foreign.
Yes.
We can't leave our spouse and go do a foreign mission for a super long time when we have like our own family to take care of. And like you're saying, and your neighbors as well, like that really is mission. And there are people in the neighborhood who maybe they have lost a loved one and they need meals, and so to bring meals to them.
Oh, you should see what I mean. Yeah, that happens all the time. And when we brought baby Jay into our house, our neighborhood served us. Right. And then people were bringing us meals, bringing us meals.
The community really came together.
Yeah, and so there's lots of ways to do that.
If you want to feed the hungry and clothe the naked, that's called having a baby.
And in prison as well.
That's right. The crib, right?
Right.
So one thing I'm thinking about is, whether it's the amount of self-gift it takes to foster a child, or even just the amount of self-gift it takes to say, like, we're going to go down to St. Agnes and go help at the women's shelter and feed. How are ways that you prepare your kids for that, right? Because you're asking something of their hearts and you don't want it to be like at arm's distance kind of a thing. So what are you saying to your kids?
So even like with fostering and everything, we come together in prayer first, right? Because it has to come out of a foundation of love, and then you move out into the community. And so that has looked different throughout our family time. So when they were younger, our kids went to St. Agnes and stuff, and we come together and be like, how do you want to serve? How do you want to express Christ's love in the community? Yeah. And it might be differently. Sometimes during Lent or Advent, we give them some money that they can distribute in ways that they see fit throughout the community. Yeah. So it's like when they're younger, it does look different. But I think as your family forms a mission, and like I said, I think, David has his mission, I have my own mission, but we also have like a family mission. You talk about it and you pray about it, and then you reassess always, but it's always as a family unit. And you kind of come together and say, are we ready to do this? Are we ready to explore things in this way? Our prayer life and stuff.
And so they learn a little bit about sacrificial love.
Yeah.
Right. That way, because there's a lot of things that they'd rather do sometimes. And so thinking about that, I think very much the fostering has really sort of helped them think about that, about like, okay, it's not just about me. Here I've got this, infant toddler who's, sometimes an agent of chaos, like any toddler is, right? And like, okay, but they've really given into it. And I think it's also opened their eyes up to a part of the world that, thankfully for them, they haven't been exposed to. Right? They've been very fortunate to live in the house that at least I think they've been very fortunate to live in the house. We'll have to ask them if they think that way. But to also realize, okay, there's a lot of kids who don't have the advantages and the things that they have.
Yeah. So there's the before the act of service, right? Where you really help your children prepare and think about. And I love how you're calling upon their freedom to sort of engage. And how do you want to be creative in doing this? About after the fact, right? Because like, at least in my home, when I'm asking my kids, like, hey, what'd you think of that experience? No matter what it is, it could be like a baseball game. It could have been serving at St. Agnes. And I was like, it was pretty good.
Right.
And it's kind of like, okay, like, I know there's things that you're thinking of. Like, I saw your face while we were doing it. I know there are things you're thinking of. So how do you help your kids kind of reflect on what happened and what went through, what was going on inside of them? How do you help them kind of bring that to the surface?
I'm not sure we've developed that as well as we probably could have. I mean, any of this stuff, nobody's ever got it all perfectly worked out. Sometimes it's just like, how did you feel? Is more, especially with younger kids, what did you feel? Is probably the better question, more than what did you think. So, whether they were uncomfortable or challenged or bullied or whatever.
And I think also those discussions need to happen about, how did you feel? And then would you want to do that again? But even if it made you feel uncomfortable, why? Yeah. Because sometimes that uncomfortable place is kind of where our growth comes through. It's finding that balance of, okay, I felt uncomfortable, but like, I'm going to grow and learn from this. Whereas like, you don't want to overwhelm a child as well too.
To use an analogy, and there was a study about sports and parents, and they asked kids like, what was the worst part of sports? they said the ride home, because this is where like parents start debriefing on the game, right? No, seriously.
Like say what you did wrong.
Right, or what, Right. And so sometimes I think even with these sort of service opportunities with younger kids, like if you get to, okay, now, how was it? How do you feel? Versus sort of like organically, if you've got this ongoing relationship with your kids where you can talk about it and, and sometimes it comes up in different ways. So most of our conversations that way are much more organic than sort of pointed, I think.
Oh, I love that. And I love that study. That's a great analogy, right? Because kids don't like hearing the criticism right after doing the thing.
Right. Or even the praise. If they bring it up, that's one thing. Right. So, but it's when the parents bring it up that actually can sort of be a bit of a problem for kids.
Yeah. One thing in my family that I've found to be helpful for reflecting on stuff like that is normally like bedtime softens them up. There's something about tucking a kid in and be like, anything you're thinking about from today?
We're just like,
and all of a sudden the thoughts start flowing.
Today. Yeah. Yeah. What was hard? Yeah, I agree. Bedtime's a good time.
Think about takeaways for our families who are going to be watching this. And I think that one thing that they can do is become aware of places and spaces that they can serve at that region. We obviously have Mother Teresa's nuns have their soup kitchen and women's shelter. We have Vagabond Missions right here at Sacred Heart. We have our new food pantry and our coffee shop, our cafe that they can serve in. There's St. Vincent de Paul homeless shelter. There's we have Angola. We can learn more about fostering at our parish. So I would encourage families to, first and foremost, become aware of what's out there. Maybe this month, test out a few different ones, and then come together after we've experienced it as a family and pray it and discern one that we want to commit to for the next year or two. Or we can go consistently into that one particular mission to form a relationship.
Form relationships, absolutely. Because it's funny, thinking about to when we first started dating and we were, serving the homeless in Dallas. There's this one guy I've never been able to get out of my mind. His name was Freddie. Do you remember Freddie?
I remember Freddie.
Right. So he was maybe on the spectrum, maybe a little schizophrenic, and you could just tell like he was this beautiful, beautiful big black man, but just like. His brain wasn't working right. And I've sort of always wondered like whatever happened to that kid. He was just a little paranoid, schizophrenic. It was really, I thought about that guy, right? But I knew his name.
Yeah. One thing I'm thinking about for that challenge for families that I think would be good to clarify, because you brought us to this place where like there's discomfort and it can be such a powerful place for the Holy Spirit to help us grow. But just to clarify, like what we're not saying is there's like a bad kind of discomfort where it's like, this is unsafe. Like this is leading me to darker places or whatever. And then there's that good kind of discomfort where you feel like the Lord is like, you could grow here if you step out of yourself, right? So finding that place, I feel like can be really good family discernment to be like, this is going to take a little bit of courage to do this if we do this sort of thing.
So, it's the challenge of love. So I think one of the hardest things for me to realize and to really sort of lean into with fostering is, developing a relationship with our foster child's mom, and, who's had a very tough and rough life of her own. And just thinking about like, it's not just I'm called to love him, but because he exists, I'm called to love her too. Right? Even given the various difficult things that might have happened, So, really learning to love, not just sort of serve people, but to genuinely love. And sometimes the people that you serve can be difficult to no doubt love, right? It's not always easy. Sometimes people have their agency and they may want to push back and may not like the way you serve them. Yeah. And they'll let you know.
Yeah. But that's love.
That's love. That's what makes it really difficult, right? To really will the good for those people for their sake.
This is a call of love. So thank y'all for your witness of love. I think it's super inspiring, and I hope it motivates many more disciples of Sacred Heart and beyond to also give themselves what you've been doing. Thank y'all.
Y'all are a treasure in our community. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.